Alright, hello everyone, how are you guys doing today? Alright, so I'm going to be talking about bad weapon designs and what I would consider to be terrible weapon designs. Now, when it comes to weapon designs, I'm not talking about what it looks like or the presentation. I'm talking about the gameplay of the weapon, how the weapon feels, and what the core concept of it was established to be. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the Splattershot Jr. first. Okay, so I do not like what they are doing with this main weapon in general. I think the concept of it is okay, but I feel like it was executed better with carbon deco and any other weapon that uses and utilizes its sub-weapon effectively with its main weapon. Now, some of you probably might be wondering, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Splattershot Jr. is too reliant on sub-ability spam. It is too annoying, and it's a little, I guess the best way to say it, it's a little dumb. You know, teaching a player to just reliantly spam a bunch of sub-abilities to do something, standing in the back and painting, while also spamming subs to do most of the damage, that doesn't really teach you much. As a matter of fact, I don't even think it does anything for you. If anything, that kind of backfires, because that doesn't really teach you to fight. It just teaches you that spamming subs is fine, and so is painting the ground in front of you, which I'm not gonna diss that. I mean, painting the ground to cover turf so that your allies can go up, that's fine, but again, there are other weapons that can do that effectively. Splash isn't even a sub-ability spam weapon, but it can still paint in front of it and still provide a good amount of paint for its allies to go up. I mean, Splattershot, the regular Splattershot, it might not necessarily be a supportive weapon, but again, it can still paint and provide a lot of help from the back while also having good damage. Sploosh, another weapon, for example, can paint relatively well and does amazing damage, even though it's very inaccurate, but it's not susceptible to just spamming a bunch of subs. That's my problem with the Splattershot Jr. It's just only a main weapon used to spam a bunch of sub abilities. And when we have weapons like Splattershot Jr. introduced, we're gonna have other weapons like the Aerospray introduced. I absolutely love the Aerospray to death. I think it's such a fun main weapon. I really like its rate of fire, and I genuinely think this is a weapon with missing potential, or rather with hidden potential. I genuinely believe if the developers play and touch their game, or just the Aerospray in general, they would understand that what this weapon needs is some really good accuracy and mobility buff, and this thing would be a beast, running and gunning, you know, blasting fools left and right. But instead, it's just the special spam main weapon. It's just like, okay, as if spamming subs wasn't enough, let's just have a main weapon that spams a bunch of special weapons. Oh boy, and it's not even like the best ones. Booyah Bomb is a good special weapon, but it's not the most effective one, and it's kind of dumb that I have to stay in the back and, you know, spam a bunch of Booyah just to even use it. And the next one is Reef Slider, which is only really good once you have a bunch of special power-up. I just gotta wonder what the whole point of designing both of these were. What is so fun about spamming and abusing, you know, one thing? Why don't you just make a strong main weapon? Everyone in this game agrees that using strong main weapons feel more satisfying than using a special gimmicky, spammy weapon that doesn't feel the same. At least to me, it doesn't feel the same. I genuinely believe both of these weapons have potential to go somewhere, but my problem is that these developers aren't doing much about it. They just feel like they're there, and that's it. Alright, now moving on to the other weapons, which are also a paint spammy bunch, is the Splattershot Nova and the Big Swig Roller. I am extremely disappointed with what they did with the Splattershot Nova. For 2 years of content, there was nothing done with this weapon. Instead, they made the biggest mistake by giving it a painting buff by 20%, I believe, and buffing its accuracy by 7%, which is confusing to me because a weapon that that the Splattershot Nova is related to, the Splattershot Pro, got an 8% accuracy buff, even though accuracy was never the Splattershot Pro's whatever. That's all I gotta say. They didn't do anything with Splattershot Nova. It went from underwhelming to weak in 2 years. That's very surprising how that even works. I'm surprised it didn't go from underwhelming to what the heck did they even bother making this weapon. It just feels like it's disappointing. Nova is still inconsistent. It's still unreliable. It still can't fight from a good distance. They just did nothing with this weapon. It makes me wonder that, do these developers even play their own game? It feels like they don't. And, you know, that disappointment could also go to the Big Swig, which ironically, both weapons came out in the exact same season. How is it that the Big Swig still isn't one-shotting? Why is this roller not able to one-shot when rolling? Or when it does its horizontal, why doesn't it have a consistent one-shot? Yeah, it has a consistent one-shot, that being the vertical, but it's so narrow and it's so slow and it's already difficult to even hit. What is the point of this? If I wanted something to one-shot consistently, I would play the roller, I would play the Flingza, I would play the carbon roller. Heck, I would even play the dynamo before I even bothered playing the Big Swig. If anything, they didn't do anything with the Big Swig. They just gave it some pointless ink efficiency buffs, maybe a whiting frame buff, and what I mean by whiting frame is the amount it takes for your ink to recharge. That's it. They didn't do anything for the main weapon. They might have given it a little bit of a damage buff, but like, why don't you just give it a one-shot? Why don't you just make the horizontal, the roll, a one-shot? The potential is there. Both of these weapons have potential to be fun. Both have potential to have, you know, good combat abilities. They have potential, but like, nothing is happening. They just become some special spammy weapon that is unreliable, and it just gives it this dumb gimmick of just constantly abusing specials. Why are we designing weapons like this? Why not make a satisfying weapon where I can pick it up and just have no problems with it? It just makes you wonder, man, what are they doing with some of these weapons? Alright, enough about the paint spammy, bad design weapons. Let's talk about weapons that are actually badly designed. And the reason these ones are badly designed is because if they buff these weapons, they could either be strong, broken, but if they nerf these weapons, they could be useless and worthless. So let's start off with the Undercover Brella. So the Undercover Brella, if they do decide to buff its damage by 45 to maybe 55%, that might be a little too broken, because now the time to kill is way too high, and now it's got a shield which is already going to be difficult enough to fight. So now it just creates this problem. Okay, what do we do? Do we decrease the damage or do we decrease the shield? And if they decrease the shield, now we have a weaker, crappier version of a Splat Brella. Awesome. And if we increase the damage, great, now it has a good shield and now it can kill faster. Awesome. So maybe it's not a good idea buffing this weapon. What if we give it a sub-weapon? That's also a bad idea. Assuming they give the Undercover Brella a burst bomb, now it can two-shot you relatively easy with just maybe potentially 48% of your ink tank. That doesn't seem like a bad trade-off, considering that the Undercover, if it did get burst bomb, could use 2 burst bombs and secure 2 kills if the player successfully hits their shots with both the burst bomb and an undercover shot. Okay, great. So we can't really give it sub-weapons. Okay, what about special weapons? Not a good idea, because now it'll just become another paint spammy weapon, which it already is for the most part. Undercover is mostly used to spam Reef Slider. Fun. Awesome. That's great. So Undercover is just in this weird position where you can't really buff it, but you can't really nerf it, because if you nerf it, it's going to be more useless than it currently is. But if you buff it, it's going to be unnecessarily stronger than most main weapons. So it just becomes this tug of war. What the heck do we do with this weapon? Honestly, the best thing I could say is to just rework it completely. There's nothing they can do to fix this weapon, because there really isn't anything they can do to fix this weapon. And I guess the best transition to do this as well is to the Recycled Brella. I didn't think it was possible I didn't think it was ever possible to make another weapon being impossible to fix and create problems with. Bam, the Recycled Brella now does good damage and is now a shield spamming weapon. That's exactly where it's going, and I don't like it. I don't like that its gimmick is to throw a bunch of shields in front of you to use for some kind of protection. because that's kind of what it feels like. I feel like the recycled Brella is going to be used as a gimmick weapon where the only thing you do is hold the shield out, wait for it to pop out, and when it's broken, keep doing it consistently over and over again. I think it's about time you just buff its range and just never touch that shield recovery speed up ever again. I think the main weapon needs to act like a shotgun, and if it did act like a shotgun, I wouldn't be mad. Nobody else would be mad, because I would rather fight a Brella with a very weak shield and very easy to break shield that hits like a shotgun than a Brella that spams a bunch of shields for potentially having a dumb strategy and constantly dealing with those stupid shields. I don't like the direction where the recycled Brella is going, and I don't like the way it feels either. So I genuinely hope they just stop touching that shield recovery and just give it a range buff. That's really all it needs. It just let the weapon fight. That's it. Make it play like a shotgun. And then there we go. Problem fixed. And the next weapon I'm also going to talk about that has the same problems as Undercover and Recycled is the Clash Blaster. I've played the Clash Blaster. When you play it right, it feels good. It is a fun weapon. I will not deny that. It is a fun weapon. But I gotta say, Clash is one of the weirdest weapons ever. It feels easy to play, but at the same time, it doesn't. Like, I don't know how to say it, but like it feels weird. I feel like it could be rewarding if you know how to use it, but if you don't, it just becomes this weird like hitbox chip damage. I don't know, man. I just don't like the way it feels. It just doesn't feel like it belongs in this game. It just feels like I just feel like it's unrewarding. It feels unsatisfying to play it. And if they do decide to buff it by giving it a little bit of a paint buff, that's not a good idea, because now you're just making a annoying chip damage weapon that can hit you from any corner, as well as giving it a painting buff that will now spam specials. How convenient. Yeah. No, I don't like where both of, if anything, all three of these weapons are going. I feel like they're too not too spammy. I feel like they could be dangerous if they're buffed. They could be too weak if they're nerfed. So it just becomes this limbo of, okay, what do we do with this weapon? The best advice I got for you, rework them completely, please. And finally, let's talk about the last two weapons I have to talk about. Okay, so let's start off with the Painbrush. Oh boy, this behemoth, this destroyer, this bonker, this weapon, the Painbrush. I love this weapon, man. I really do. But I mean, like, I don't know what to say, man. Why would they make a weapon that takes 23 whole frames for a startup, knowing that it gets paired up against weapons like Roller, which has a 21 frame one-shot, Flingza has a 19 frame one-shot, Carbon Roller has a 10 frame one-shot, Dynamo has a 40 frame one-shot, which, for those who don't understand what problem that brings, Dynamo outranges you, has a higher one-shot than your two-shot for the Painbrush. Just like, what are they doing? What are they doing? I've never been so frustrated playing a weapon like Painbrush. Just like, it feels not only unnecessarily weak, it feels unnecessarily slow, and just because it can paint, that's not really justifiably a good reason to make it slower and weaker than most of the weapons in this game. That's kind of how I feel about Painbrush. It doesn't feel like a weapon that can deal pain. It feels like a pain to play, because my goodness, why would they give a two-shot weapon a 23 frame startup, knowing that it has to face weapons that have a less annoying windup and a better one-shot, and that weapon is a two-shot? I have no idea. They've already created good two-shot weapons. Those are called blasters, and those are better than the Painbrush. Painbrush is not a consistently good two-shot weapon. Never was, never will be. What is a good way they could buff it? Simple. Get rid of that 23 frame startup. Either make it 15, or compensate for the 23 frames it currently has. Increase the damage by 20 for the windup and just revert it back to normal so it can consistently two-shot. What the heck are they doing with this weapon, man? Like, I've played this weapon for so long, maybe like a month in a row, like an entire month. It's just like, man, it drives me nuts, man. Okay, before I start blowing a fuse over Painbrush, let's talk about Goo Tuber. You know what? I probably should, go along with the frustration of Painbrush, because my goodness, what do you even do about Goo Tuber? I have played this weapon for maybe 6 matches and completely gave up on the 7th one, because even I was flustered on how slow, how weak, how inconsistent, how boring, how just utterly pathetic this weapon is. How do you even use this weapon? That's the thing I keep asking myself when I play Goo Tuber. Why don't they just, make it faster? Maybe give it a little bit of a, what's it called? The squiffer buff. When you jump, it still doesn't interfere with the charge. Why don't they just do that? Like, it's just so frustrating every time I play Goo Tuber and Painbrush. These are badly designed because they're just unnecessarily frustrating. It's just, whatever, man. Oh boy, that was something. All right. Obviously, I don't hate any of these weapons. If anything, I really wish the developers put more quality and care for most of these weapons, because I genuinely believe all of these weapons have some seriously good potential. And I know a lot of these weapons have a lot of player bases, well, for the most part. And I'm sure a lot of people who made these weapons, they're upset that their weapon doesn't get enough love. And I feel that pain. Like, I genuinely believe that most of these weapons deserve a lot of love. But let me know in the comments below what you guys believe to be a terribly designed weapon, or what you believe to be a badly designed weapon, and what you would do to fix these weapons. Anyways, thanks for enjoying the video, guys, and I hope you guys have a great day.